Report of the Center-State Relations Inquiry Committee, Government of Tamil Nadu, 1971, read by Ramani. Chapter 19, Union Executive. The Central Cabinet is the chief executive body at the national level. The committee considers that the Union Cabinet should be an instrument securing the integrity of the country and national unity. In a country with vast differences of religion, language, race, and culture, steps must, as far as possible and consistent with parliamentary traditions, be taken to secure representation in the Union Ministry for the various regions and linguistic groups. Even with the presidential system of government in vogue in the USA, where a cabinet of the parliamentary type has no place and the cabinet cannot exercise any real power, the members of the cabinet are often named so as to give representation to various geographical regions. The American Constitution does not refer to any ministry to advise the president. The American cabinet is appointed purely on an informal basis and is a political institution, but efforts are made to secure for it as wide a territorial base as possible. The most notable characteristic of the Canadian cabinet is the representative nature of its membership. It seeks to coordinate the divergent provincial, sectional, religious, racial, and other interests throughout the Dominion. The first requisite is that every province must have, if at all possible, at least one representative in the cabinet. The cabinet has thus become federalized. The convention that each province must be represented in the cabinet has led to another convention, namely that Quebec and Ontario, the two large provinces, must each have more than one representative. It's further ensured that at least 3 French-speaking representatives are in the cabinet. Race and religion are also carefully considered in making cabinet appointments. The 3 French Canadians from Quebec are always Roman Catholic, and 1 English Canadian is usually a Protestant. The cabinet invariably contains an Irish Roman Catholic. This practice of forming a cabinet based on several varieties of sectional representation is justified on the ground of the racial, religious, and cultural differences prevalent in such a large and varied country as Canada. The 3 major political parties in Australia, namely the Labour, Country, and Liberal parties, have their main base in the various states, and the organizations of the parties reflect the federal character of the Constitution. The cabinet must include representatives of the rural areas and urban areas, and it must, if possible, take in representatives of each state. The Lone Council is a peculiar feature of the Australian constitutional setup. It's a body which came into existence by virtue of an agreement entered into between the federal government and the various states. This agreement has been given a statutory status by a constitutional amendment and by the passing of acts by the Commonwealth Parliament and the parliaments of the states. The Lone Council is set to discharge in Australia the same functions that the Senate in America discharges. The Australian Lone Council is set to serve the interests of the states. It consists of Australian Prime Minister and the Prime Ministers of the various states or their deputies. The national executive in Switzerland is known as the Federal Council. It consists of 7 members elected for a term of 4 years by the Federal Assembly, that's Parliament. This type of executive is known as the collegiate one. It's based neither on the presidential system nor on the parliamentary system. In Switzerland, in the election of the Federal Council, 2 unwritten conventions are scrupulously observed. One is that the two leading cantons, namely Bern and Zurich, are always represented on the cabinet. Waadt is, by area and population, the largest of the purely French speaking cantons, and this is invariably represented on the cabinet. Another convention is that not more than 5 members of the cabinet should be chosen from the German speaking cantons. Thus, either another of the French speaking cantons or the Italian speaking canton or both are always represented. It's also the custom that both the confessions, namely Roman Catholics and Protestants, and important language groups, should be more or less fairly represented. It's further ensured that all the four political parties in the country, namely Liberals, Catholic Conservatives, Farmers' Party, and Socialists, are represented in the cabinet. Ever since the promulgation of our Constitution on the 26th of January 1950, 10 councils of ministers have been in office at the center. Precise information regarding the states in which ministers of cabinet rank had their domicile or from which they were elected is not available. With reference to the available data, this committee has tried to ascertain the state or states to which the central ministers of cabinet rank belonged or belong. On a rough analysis, it appears that Bihar, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh had always been represented on the central cabinet. Uttar Pradesh had 6 cabinet ministers out of 20 during the period from the 13th of May 1952 to 17th of April 1957. Again, during the period from the 10th of April 1962 to the 27th May 1964, when the total number of cabinet ministers was 24, UP had 6, Tamil Nadu, except in the present cabinet, and West Bengal, except during the period from May 1950 to May 1952, had always been represented by ministers of cabinet rank, although the number of such ministers varied from time to time. Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Mysore had been represented by cabinet ministers except on 3 or 4 occasions. On the other hand, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Rajasthan, and Jammu and Kashmir had representation in the cabinet only on 1 or 2 occasions. This shows that there had been no uniform practice or convention in the appointment of cabinet ministers. Whereas some states have been represented on almost all occasions, some others have gone without representation for over a long period. In the light of the practice prevailing in other countries with a constitution similar to our own, it's not beyond the capacity of our leaders and statesmen to establish conventions regulating the formation of the cabinet at the central level in such a way as to secure, consistent with the parliamentary type of government and all that it involves, representation for the various regions of the country. We had already adverted to the fact that there have been occasions when a single state had secured the largest number of cabinet ministers. In order to guard against such practices in future, it's desirable to ensure that the number of central ministers of cabinet rank belonging to any one single state should not be more than 1/5 of the total number.